I'm Geoff Brundrit, and we're going to go through this slide a little bit backwards. I'm from UCT, and I'd like to thank UCT for the support that I obtained so that I could join the Worldwide Universities Network Changing Coasts group. This is a newly formed group which had its first exploratory meeting in Southampton earlier this year. And I emphasize exploratory because what this means is that I'm not going to be talking about results. I'm going to be talking a little bit about ideas. But for you, there are opportunities in the future for joining this group. Let me now unpack the title. That is the Worldwide Universities group. You can perhaps see that it's cold. So you won't notice all the people, but maybe you'll recognize some of these names. The group is led by Robert Nichols from the University of Southampton. I'm there with a star next to my name. But there are other people whose names you may recognize. If you do, I encourage you to contact them because I think it's going to be a very interesting work which the group is going to be doing. I should mention that in the list from Southampton, it's Ivan Haig who will be visiting the University of Cape Town in March, April. And if you want to see him, you can be able to make contact with him at that stage. That's in EGS. A low-risk coast. Is this a low-risk coast? This is the capital of the Maldives. The Maldives make their money from tourism, and you may say, well, how do they get there? Well, the neighboring island has an airport built on it. It is a reclaimed atoll. It's got the services also reclaimed. Is that a low-risk coast? Is this a low-risk coast? A slightly different part. It's part of Lagos Lagoon, and close up, high tide. Is that a low-risk coast? Well, I can't see how this can be low risk. I must admit it's open to the ocean. There are events which will, in fact, immediately attack. I don't think it's a healthy environment at all. On the other hand, going back to there, well, if you look carefully at this, this is perhaps a low-risk coast because it's got high protection. You will see all the way around there is a seawall. All the way around, and that seawall has been designed to withstand events that have taken place in the recent past. But in the future, it is high risk because as ice starts to melt, that island will be overwhelmed. And the people of the Maldives have been trying to find an alternative location for their country, and they have approached Australia, who has turned them down. Now that is an example, I think, of a transition. It's imaginative thinking into the future. So here, a transition. You can read the first one. I think the second one is a better thing. It's a transition produces a significant long-term reduction in the level of risk associated with a stressor. In this case of the Male, the capital of the Maldives, the stressor is sea level rise. This diagram I'm going to dwell on quite a lot. It's a diagram which indicates what sort of actions can be taken. At the top of the diagram are the sort of coping short-term actions. Well, at the very top, the red line, is what happens to risk if you do nothing. Well, in a climate change world, the risk increases. Then there are the coping, and you have various active where you sort of say, oh, I've got to do something this year, so you take some action, but next year, so you're oscillating around about a defined level of policy. You may get better action in the sense that you take more dramatic action, but in fact that dramatic action in the course of time just comes back, and you have to take further action. So there is not a permanent solution there. But there is some adaptation in the reactive actions. But the long-term and proactive action is to make a transition, which is, in effect, the green line, which is to lower the risk dramatically in a very short period of time so that you can relax for a long period of time. That is the idea of the green line. You've made the action, such as going to Australia, and you can relax. Here are a couple of countries. You can read the top. It talks about growth and people moving into the coastal zone. On the left, you have Bangladesh. Half the population live below 10 meters above sea level in a low elevation coastal zone. That is a country which is in danger. It is high risk. What action are they taking? Well, they have made transitions. They have built on their lack of awareness in the past. They've now changed the situation so that disaster risk is reduced in Bangladesh from the cyclones. The last cyclone produced very few fatalities, and this was by involving local communities and saying, look, we are in danger, let's take action. On the right-hand side is the Netherlands. An even greater proportion of the land is below, well, most of it's below sea level anyway. It's very much protected. It's very much protected, and that protection was a transition which took place 200 to 300, 400 years ago. The interesting thing is that now in the Netherlands, they're getting worried about that whether that transition that they took, whether that protection is going to last into the future, and whether it's going to, they're going to need another transition. We need some evidence to answer the question, do we need actually to have these transitions? Well, I've mentioned that risk is increasing, and this is some evidence from losses from natural disasters over the past 30 years. And you can see that the cost of these natural disasters is rising. Some of those costs are insured, the blue, but the total costs are certainly rising, and that rise is steepening. So that suggests that perhaps radical action is needed. Here are the top 20 cities with exposed assets. There are some big cities and some smaller cities. Those are the top 20. There's one in Africa that is Alexandria, where again, in Alexandria as a city, half of the city is below sea level. These are the top 20 cities. The interesting thing is that they are mostly protected. They have been protected for a long time. So perhaps they have already had their transitions. This is Alexandria. I'll go past that. What is the protection that these cities are enjoying? Here are some of the big cities, and here is the level of protection. You can contrast Amsterdam and Rotterdam, where the feeling is that those cities are protected for a 10,000-year situation. Once in 10,000 years, with very much Dutch thoroughness. By contrast, you see the American cities. New Orleans at the bottom, the 200-year return period of where's the protection going to be beaten. It was 100 years until Katrina, and at that time it was changed to 200 years because a huge wall has been built around New Orleans since Katrina, and that has raised the level of protection. New York remains protected at 100 years. Here is the breakdown of the levees that took place between the Mississippi River and Lake Pontchartrain, which is a big lagoon within the city. The levees broke, everything got flooded. The crucial thing here, I think, is that protection has been put back at an enormous cost. It's $500 billion. It's a big wall that it's been built around New Orleans, but only 2/3 of the original population decided they would like to take that risk and have gone back. So the population of the city has reduced. Of course, it's the rich people that did not go back. This is what happened after Sandy. Let me go back to that. This is Manhattan Island by night and by day. You can see that everybody travels to Manhattan in the daytime, but on that day they couldn't get there because this is not the subway or the underground, but it's the underwater. I'd like to go back to this because I mentioned that this is evidence of disasters, and many of these disasters are protected. Many of them are protected. And I'd say that this is a graph which actually demonstrates the failure of protection in recent times. It's an increasing failure of protection, and so it does need to be reconsidered. Now, what about Cape Town? What about Cape Town in this context is that 100 years ago, Cape Town was protected. Cape Town was protected by the building of the harbour and the continued building of the harbour, which gave protection to ships, but what it also did is gave protection to large areas of wetland, which was behind the coast, on which has been built the foreshore, the railways, the industrial area of Pardon Island, all built on very vulnerable, previously vulnerable coastal locations, now well protected by the harbour. Or is it? Because what is happening now is that Table Bay is gaining a new shape because of the harbour taking out the shape. So naturally, there is coastal erosion taking place on the Milnerton side, and that is eating away the natural protection that exists on that side of Table Bay and threatening the low-lying land behind, and that leads into, behind the harbour, it leads into the industrial area in the city. So if we have a Sandy, and Sandy was not a tremendously big storm, but if we have a Sandy, and we do have a breakdown of the natural protections on the side, then we will get really serious and very expensive impacts on Cape Town. I said that is an opportunity. The opportunity is to see what action can be taken in Cape Town, coping action, small-scale, short-term action, or is there a place to make another transition? If so, what sort of a transition? And the city, as you heard yesterday, is already looking at some things which could be considered as part of adaptation, which would lead to an attraction, a retreat from the coast, setback lines, things like that. I must give you my very last slide, so boing, 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 boing. Any questions?